Welcome to the Vault Podcast, classic music reviews, presented by IV Creative. Now, here's your hosts, B. Cox and the crew.
Greetings and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Vault Podcast, classic music reviews, presented by IV Creative, perspective of the classics from a fresh point of view. We appreciate you for taking your time and lending your ears to our perspective. You could be anywhere listening to anything, but you're right here with us, so we thank you. With you today is yours truly, B. Cox. With me, I have the crew comprised of these fine gentlemen surrounding me. To my left, we have my boy Dominique Marks, aka Cousin Damo. He is the host of the Raw Sex Podcast. You can catch it on Podbean, also on Spotify, and also on Apple Podcasts as well. To my right, we have my boy D.T. Dave. He is the host of the Ground Rule Double Podcast, covering the world of sports every Monday and Friday evening on Facebook. You can catch him on the Facebook Live doing that podcast. Check the listings there for that every Friday and also Monday. And to my 12 o'clock, right in front of me, my boy Jason, J.O., hip-hop connoisseur from everything from the East Coast to West Coast, down south, and everything in between. Always like to appreciate having you gentlemen here with me today as we chop it up over the classics. And today we have an all-timer, a rarity of a diamond, one that sits in the rough and that we're still talking about 25 years later. We go back to 1994 to the 40th and 41st side, Queensbridge Housings. We're talking about none other than one of the 2 or 3 greatest albums ever recorded, Illmatic by Nas, his debut album, released April 19th, 1994, on Columbia Records, recorded in 92 and 93, where it was recorded a laundry list of places, including Battery Studios, Chung King Studios, and also D&D Recording, all in New York City. Executive producers was Faith N, the executive producer here. Of course, the producers on this album, a who's who. You can go down and talk about the list of who produced on this album. You know them well. LES, DJ Premier, Pete Rock, Large Professor, Q-Tip. That's it. That's all. But that's all that you need on an album of 10 tracks. Right. And a classic that you see from miles and miles to go. It's not much that we really have to say about it. We're going to discuss it today, but this is an album that truly speaks for itself. It's one of the, I would say, in my opinion, one of the top 3 best albums ever recorded in hip-hop. And one of the most important ones as well, and where it stood during that particular time. 10-track album that covered a number of different topics, and an MC that was up and coming that finally came out with an album that took very long, I think, commercially to get its recognition in the world. I mean, this only went, I think, platinum. It only went platinum, I believe, out 7 years after it came out on December 11, 2001. It only went gold 2 years after it came out in 1996. And as of now, has still only sold 2 million copies, which is amazing.
Travesty.
Thinking about
Crazy travesty.
Thinking about how long it's taken for this album to get there. But Illmatic, what can we say? I'll go around to get everybody's reaction. And this is something that I have to get everybody's first reaction when they first listen to it, because it's always important to get someone's reaction when you first listen to an album. And this, to me, is at the top of the list. Dave, first time you heard it, your reaction, what you took from it, and what you take from it now, even after all these years.
Just raw, gritty, real talk. And it was life-changing, for real. It was like, it really changed how I looked at music. I remember I showed you the tape. And I was like, yo, this album is just immaculate. And as a grown man now, I have the 20th anniversary edition on vinyl. Mm-hmm. I still haven't opened it yet.
Wow.
But
keep it sealed.
I haven't opened it yet.
Keep it sealed.
I look back at it, I'm just like, this album started me on the path that I'm on now with the kind of music that I listen to. I don't listen to the radio. I still don't. But like Illmatic, just absolutely flawless.
Yeah.
Flawless.
Jay, your first reaction when you heard it? 25 years ago, 1994.
What was I, like 12 going on 13 then? So like
94 was a good year.
Was musically, it was just incredible. Now, of course, that was like the time when the shift really started happening from like the West Coast scene to the East Coast. So for Nas, like to come in with Illmatic, it was almost like a kick in the head, like, hey, focus on this right now. Like, and then he had a joint starts, and then how it just like slaps all the way through the production of it, Nas's lyricism, the choice as far as like guest appearances with people that were relatively unknown. Like no one really knew who AZ was, but like his verse on "Life's a Bitch," that's like that's like a classic verse of pretty much how everyone felt at the time that was like living that inner city life. I mean, that's why we get high, because you never know when you're going to go. Like, and that was an unfortunate reality for a lot of us at that time. So now,
especially coming right after the crack epidemic.
yes,
Yeah.
and like neighborhoods was like just starting to heal from that. So like listen to it as a grown man now, I appreciate more like the production, the lyricism that I was blessed by the grace of God have grown up during that time to appreciate that album.
Yeah.
Just the fact it was just like, just a remarkable piece of work. I mean, just you really can't say too much else about it.
Damo?
94-11. I was with my uncle, and my uncle was kind of militant minded, so he made sure he played this right here to open my mind up, and it made me change my mindset. Actually made me read the Malcolm X book off of that my uncle had, and he's like, you need to read this and listen to this, and I was like, oh, it's a whole different mindset that I had from just being a little kid and some of the other hip hop that I heard to this. I was like, oh, it's a whole nother level. And then you even think about it. I read somewhere that Jay had a quote that said, I had Illmatic on bootleg. The shit was so ahead, thought we was all dead. And this is his rival saying how he felt about Illmatic. So Illmatic ain't nothing but the truth.
Yeah, Jay quoted Illmatic. Even they was beefing, he was like,
that's
Illmatic.
That's part of the beef.
Right.
They made it a hot line. I made it a hot song.
Yeah. Yeah, but this album, to me, when I listened to this album, it was the first time you had maybe heard, probably since Big Daddy Kane, Cool G Rap, and Rakim, someone using those multi-syllabic rhymes, and the internal rhymes, be taken in the way his wordplay was ridiculous. And it was almost like an offshoot of him being a student of Kane and Rakim. And you could see that rebirth as you listen to this. The production on this is flawless. To me,
yes.
Mm-hmm. There are not many albums that can stand up to this quality, track for track, how good the beats were on this album, and especially during that time, how good it was. It was ridiculous how great it was. It did change the way that I listen to rap, because to me, this became the standard. And there weren't many that got into this stratosphere of how good this album was. I know people are hyperbolic about this album, but it's because it's for a reason. Because, we talk about one of the hallmarks of a classic, and I'm going to do a blog post about this, hopefully on the Vault's website, about what are the things that you use. You want to talk about no skips? Yeah, there are no skips on this, and it's a short album, so there are no skips, but it's literally you just press play and walk away. And that's what you need to do with this album. But it changed the way.
Pretty much.
It changed the way, because this influenced a lot of rappers afterwards. You talk about rappers that reference Nas and how many of them talk about this album. And not only did it come to influence rappers, this influenced a lot of producers too. A lot of producers listen to this. I know me, when I produce now, a lot of the producers here, Pete Rock, Large Professor, DJ Premier, are some of my favorite producers of all time, and some of their best work happened right here on this album. So that's the way I take from it. As a grown man, also seeing Nas perform this with the NSO at Kennedy Center, not just during the 20th anniversary, but also during the 25th anniversary, it was great. And then seeing the documentary Time is Illmatic gives you an idea into the mindset and things that were happening during that particular time. Seeing any of the documentaries on this album being made is ridiculously great. You should check it out if you do, but there are. We get into this, and let's dive right into the track list. Let's just talk about the tracks. I feel like we can just go through this track for track as far as what it is, your favorite ones that you like. I mean, every single one of these tracks on here are a favorite of mine. First of all, let's get this out of the way. Is there a track on anybody here feels like shouldn't have been on here? It was a waste of time? Nope. Not at all. Nope. Okay, so then we got that out of the way. Next. All right, so just sort of go through, we'll just talk about two highlights each Dave, your highlights on this album, immediate highlights that you pull from this.
Life's a bitch.
Of course.
And the world is yours.
Life's a bitch and the world is yours. Track 3 and track 4.
I there ain't nothing else to say.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, there ain't nothing else to say. I mean, it's
yeah.
just, it's pretty much cut and dry. The production from The World Is Yours and AZ's verse from Life's a Bitch.
Yeah. And a feature from Nas's father, Oludara.
Yes.
Right. On the trumpet at the end of Life's a Bitch.
That was, if I could take all the music that I've heard, that would probably be top 10 all time as far as songs go.
Yeah.
Because you've got the verse, you've got the production, you've got the collaboration, you've got just so many beautiful things about Life's a Bitch.
Yeah.
You know, the lyricism, the production, everything was just flawless in this song.
Produced by LES, by the way. So
Unknown LES.
yeah. Jay, your highlights, the 2 highlights, if you can point them out.
Well, mine would be Life's a Bitch. I mean, just because of the production. And at the time, I didn't even know that was Nas's father on the trumpet at the end. I just thought Oludara. I didn't know that was Nas's dad. Like, so just knowing that now makes that much more special and that much more of an incredible track. And my other one, it would have to be New York State of Mind. Like, just the way that beat is set up. And
Primo.
Yeah, like... And Primo's one of those producers, like, he's so good, it kind of like irks me at times. Like, I'm never gonna be on that level. Like,
I know the frustration because I have the same frustration too.
You know what I mean? I'm never gonna have that level of expertise. Granted, I mean, I know he's like older than us and everything like that, and has more experience. But it's like, dang, I would have never thought to sample this. Like, I would have thought to sample that little airplane thing, like ding ding. Like, who thinks of that stuff? Like,
how?
Right. And then but as far as like the lyricism. I mean, because the other thing about the album is, I mean, it came at a time where, again, it was that shift going back to the East Coast. It's pretty much like, you know, it was all focus all on the West Coast. So for him to come out with a track, New York State of Mind, really putting you there, like really, you know what I mean, just like taking you like that New York State of Mind at the time, particularly in Queensbridge, and like he really painted the picture as far as like what life was like during that time for him growing up, and it just really resonated because I mean, I think anybody in there on the East Coast could really like just feel what he was saying, but it really just like put a stand back, like, look, we back. Well, not say we back, but we have something to say.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what we started at. Like, you gonna listen what we got to say. We ain't no punks or whatever like that. So
yeah.
Not to keep going, but like The World Is Yours. I mean, just the Pete Rock production, and it's just a beautiful track. You know what I mean? Like,
it is.
Just like cruise to that, just kick and listen to it. I mean, it's just dope. I mean, the whole album is dope. It's on like 10 tracks. That was the only other thing that irked me. It's like, dog, man, like you could put like another 3 or 4 in there or something. But
it could have happened.
Yeah,
but maybe the length was just the right length for it to be the way it needed to be. Damo,
Well,
2 highlights.
One Love. Oh, I love One Love. Okay. And of course, Life's a Bitch, Then You Die. Can't leave that one out. That AZ is that feature is it's one of my top 10 features right there.
Yeah.
I love that feature. And One Love is just, I feel it. I think this album is top tier lyrics, top tier storytelling. Of course, production is amazing. And I got to throw a nugget in there that my mother wanted to remind me when I said we was doing Nas. Nas did a documentary on looking for his family, and he found his family in North Carolina. Your boy is related to Nas.
Oh, wow.
Blind, bro.
I swear to God,
I need to see the
on
receipts.
everything I love, my cousin called my mother and said, Nas is here, doing his documentary. That's our cousin. I don't know how far
That's
down.
what's up.
Wow. I was like, what?
That's what's up.
Yeah, you're talking about the Henry Louis Gates documentary where they do ancestral, and you go through and check, you know, your family's background. And I remember watching that, and I wouldn't have put the 2 together, but that's crazy. I remember you told me your family's from North Carolina.
Yeah,
you know, so that's
so
wild.
My mother wanted me to make sure that I threw that out there as a nugget. I was like, yeah.
That's cool.
Now I can't I can't be bi. I can't even be biased if I wanted to.
Right.
Because the album is just a classic.
Yeah. So a couple of things to mention about this. And my highlights are, to me, 2 highlights that I'll point out are the first song on the album, New York State of Mind. The first real track of the album is New York State of Mind. And the last one, It Ain't Hard to Tell. The last track actually might be, I mean, that to me It's great. Those two. First of all, the New York State of Mind. There's a meme that's been out there floating on the internet since memes became popular on the internet, where it has a picture of Nas and it says he doesn't know how he's going to start a verse, proceeds to spit one of the illest verses in hip hop history. Because everybody remembers that part of New York State of Mind. I don't even know how to start this shit, man. Then he comes out, rappers, I'm up and flip him with the monkey rhythm. I be kicking, musician, to flip the composition. What? Hold on. You just said you didn't know how you was going to start this shit.
You set the track on fire.
Like what? Like you just said that you didn't know how the hell
he set the whole album on fire with that verse.
I mean, it's
Hip hop.
it's like, my goodness. So it's just that and that Primo track, like you said. How did you think to sample that airplane sound?
Yeah,
that piano sample that he took. So that sample, I believe it was from Mind Rain of Joe Chambers. I could be wrong. So the samples, Flight Time by Donald Byrd, he took that. NT by Kool and the Gang. Mahogany by Eric B. and Rakim is where the New York State of Mind vocal sample came from. And then Mind Rain by Joe Chambers is where everything that Primo did. He took 4 samples together and crafted a track like that. I mean, my goodness, you said it's frustrating producing. It's just like, damn, am I ever going to be able to get to that level of expertise? Right. Like, you know, but you got to think Primo's at a plane as a producer where there aren't many people who have that level of expertise. It's maybe 5 to 10 producers all time that have that kind of creativity that can put that together. And then it ain't hard to tell. Of course, the sampling of Human Nature by Michael Jackson, it was one thing, you know, to take that track and to make a hard track out of it. That was also another track that was sampled by NT with Kool and the Gang. But then I also take that track, It Ain't Hard to Tell, was produced by Large Professor. Yeah, produced by Large Professor. That's one of the tracks that I've seen where somebody made a track and then remixed the track afterwards. So Large Professor produced this track with the Human Nature sample and then produced a remix to it. And the remix to me was just about as many of my favorites just as well. So those are my highlights. There's so many of them on here, though, man. Just to point out, as we all talked about, you mentioned about One Love, the song, which, of course, started out about him writing his man's in jail. That's the first time that we heard Cormega's name mentioned on a record before we even knew who Cormega was. You know, the third verse in that, everybody here seen Belly. So they actually did that scene where he was sitting on the bench talking to the little dude. Was the third verse of One Love.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, him sitting there smoking with the shorty and the shorty telling him about him trying to get money and everything. He's schooling shorty. Like, come on, man, don't get caught up in this stuff. That was the third verse of One Love. And then also on Life's a Bitch with AZ, which introduced the world to AZ. And the next year he had his debut album, Do or Die, the year after that. This started a very long relationship between the two of them of being featured on each other's albums. And it's still, to me, one of the greatest travesties in hip hop is the fact that these two never collabed and did an album together.
Never.
You know?
Never.
And you want to talk about there aren't many MCs that can step on a track and be able to outshine Nas. AZ had the pleasure of being one of maybe a couple of rappers of stepping on a track and outshining Nas.
Visualizing the realism of life and actuality.
Fuck who's the baddest? A person's status depends on salary.
Yeah. And that was just as true then as it is now.
Drop.
Yeah.
Mic drop. That's my quotable too.
Yeah. So we'll get to the quotable, but first we'll get into your favorite song then and now. For any of you, I guess I'll start with Damo. If it's if it has changed between then and now, what was it then? What is it now? And then a song that you may have slept on that you appreciate a lot more now. So I'll start with Damo.
Nah, it really hasn't. I don't even know. I can't say which one. Life's a Bitch is my favorite. Dang, that's too many favorites.
Yeah.
Slept on Halftime. I think I slept on Halftime. That's the one that I slept on. I was like, back then I was like, okay. But now I said, oh yeah, he getting it on here. Yeah. So I would say Halftime is the one I slept on, and then it's too many that I love on this album. But Life's a Bitch is mainly because of AZ verse makes it my favorite from back then and now still.
Jay?
See, as far as back then, it really hasn't changed. I would say New York State of Mind. But as far as like now,
I couldn't have a New York State of Mind out from here.
Well, none of us, but still.
I've been up there enough times I knew. So, But as far as like now, probably say The World Is Yours. I mean, I guess I always like Pete Rock's production, but you know, it's just like one of them joints, like, you know, you have the tracks you like may play in the day, like to kind of get you started, whatever, like that. New York, I mean, The World Is Yours kind of does that for me. You know what I mean?
Right, right. Okay.
Like, that's one of my mixes as far as like, you know, quote unquote inspirational tracks to like let you know like the world is yours. You know, go out and get what it is you want. And I would have to say through it all, yeah, it's still One Love because like I mean the production, I mean like that little xylophone, whatever it was, like and I mean shout out to Q-Tip as a producer too. I mean, so like. I mean, that's another one that stuck out to me through it all. I wouldn't put it over the ones I named, but it's just another favorite of mine. And you know, the whole thing with like him shouting out Cormega, and then like, the whole thing of like him talking to the little shorty sound like his style, and that was another thing I was gonna say too, like little quote unquote hip hop nerd moment, like in the scene in Belly. They said that saying when I was in Lincoln, like one of my friends knew the little youngin was in there. He was like, that's pretty much how he lives in real life.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's like he's really like, you know what I'm saying, he still had that chain Nas gave him. And they be getting into it with people. So I don't even know if he's still around at this point, but like
that's crazy.
It just made it seem that much more real, you know?
Yeah, no, it did. It definitely did. Dave?
Same too. Life's a bitch and the world is yours, but I'm gonna add memory lane to that. I spend a lot of time reminiscing about the past.
Yeah.
So when I listen to something like Memory Lane, it really lets me know like, yo, you know what? This is a good track to really sit down and reminisce to. So that's on my highlight list as well. But it's like you said, everything from New York State of Mind to Halftime, everything is just there, man.
Yeah.
Timeless. Absolutely timeless.
So my favorite track back in the day from Illmatic was probably New York State of Mind because it was Primo, and like you said, everything that Primo likes, I love.
Midas touch.
Like, just, I love it. My favorite track now, it ain't hard to tell. Because to me, I think that was about as well as you can end that album. And the wordplay on it ain't hard to tell was ridiculous. And then not only that, the sample that he used and the way the Lost Professor flipped it, I actually think that's probably my favorite Nas track all the time, because just the way that how it stood out, I loved it. I loved everything about it. Ain't hard to tell. One Love was, of course, a good one too, because it was a great story being told in the form of a letter being written to a guy, one of his friends in prison. I love that aspect of it. But to me, it's got to be It Ain't Hard to Tell. And as far as the song that I appreciate more now, I got to go with my brother Dave. I got to say that it's definitely a trip down memory lane. You know, I think a lot more about the past now more so than I did before. And that to me, love the beat or whatever that Primo also did on that as well. Great. So now we're going to go to the fun part. Notable quotables. Bring them out. Let's get them out. See what you got. Notable quotables. Of course, there's a ton of them on here. There's so many lines that people took that they made into songs, a la Dead Presidents 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. So many people that have taken these lines and interpolated them and also quoted them or used them to start their own lines. There's a bunch of them on here. So I'll go ahead and start with Jay. You're just your notable quotable from this album as of the many that are there.
Probably on One Time. Mm-hmm. One Time for your mind, one time. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, just the way, just like how wild it was. It's like, y'all niggas was born. I shot my way out. My mom Dukes. Mm-hmm. Like, when I was 10, I was a hip hop and shorty, like, you know, ripping microphones, twisting off a 40 top.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, just the fact he was like, just that wild with his lyricism. And even Nas on Life's a Bitch, when he was like, woke up early, my born day 20, it's a blessing. I mean, like, yeah. I mean, because it was a reality this at back that time. I mean,
that was it.
You could very well not live to see 18. Like,
there you go.
I mean? So
there you go.
So I mean, obviously you should appreciate every day you have on this earth, cherish every moment of it. But just the fact, you know, he just like really put it out there, like, you know, this is the mind state we're in and the situation. So
yeah. Damo, your notable quotable from this album?
Of course, I gotta go to One Love. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna start it off with, plus congratulations, you know you got a son. I heard he looks just like you. While your old lady won't write you. Told her she should visit. That's when she got hyper, flipping talking about he acts too rough. He didn't listen. He be rifling while I'm telling him stuff. I was like, yeah, shorty don't care. She a snake too. Fucking with them niggas from that fuck crew that hate you. I was like, ooh. Yeah. And then, you know, he talk about the little kid and they all carrying knives. I was like, yep. Mm-hmm. I might have listened to it like 4 times this morning before I came here, for real.
Yeah, indeed. Dave, notable quotable?
Well, you already know. I just said it earlier.
Yeah.
I just said, visualizing the realism of life and actuality. Fuck who's the best. A person's status depends on salary. And my mentality is money orientated. I'm destined to live the dream for all my peeps who never made it.
We were beginners in the hood as 5%ers, but something must have got in us because all of us turned to sinners. Yeah, indeed. It's about as hard as a verse you can get to start your career. Yeah. It really is.
You gotta deal off that verse.
Yeah. So my hip hop quotable is actually as a song as it ain't hard to tell, but just to pull a few from here. The beginning of the second verse. The Buddha monks in your trunk turn the bass up. Not stories by Ace up. Place your loot up. Parties I shoot up. Nas I analyze. Drop a jewel. Inhale from the L. Schools of full well. You feel it like Braille. It ain't hard to tell. I kick a skill like Shaquille holds a pill. Vocabulary spills. I'm ill. Plusmatic. I freak beats. Slamming like iron sheet. Jam like the tech with correct technique. And then the third verse, which I think just might be the best one on there. This rhythmatic explosion is what your frame of mind is chosen. I leave your brain stimulated. Niggas is frozen. Speak with criminal slang. Begin like a violin. End like Leviathan. The deep. Let me try again. I mean, it was. I think the reason why I like that verse so much is because his wordplay with that beat, and then Large Professor took that track and then remixed it. So there's many different. We talk about the first and second verse in New York State of Mind. You talk about AZ's verse on Life's a Bitch and Nas's verse to follow that up. The first verse of The World Is Yours. Represent, which is a track that I don't think any of us have talked about yet, which is crazy because there's a laundry list of tracks. We haven't even talked about Represent. Like Represent is one of the illest tracks on there. And that was a track, man, my goodness. That sample on that track. And that was another track produced. I believe that was a Primo track as well. That on Represent. It was goodness. And that was right before It Ain't Hard to Tell. So for me, DJ Premier track, I mean, man, there's so many tracks on here, and it's just only 10, but you could literally sit here and have a conversation about every single one of those tracks and how great they are. These quotables on here, like I said, really helped inspire a couple of generations of rappers, and these producers on here and their work inspired some producers. And the samples, we talked about some of the samples that have appeared in this album. Some of the different artists that were sampled: Biz Markie, Marley Marl, Parliament, Reuben Wilson. There was a sample taken from Live at the Barbecue, which was the very first verse that everybody heard Nas on, from Wild Style, Eric B. and Rakim, the Gap Band, a lot of different, the Average White Band, like there's so many different other, like a lot of digging went through for this album. A lot of quality crate digging went through for this album, and that's what I really appreciate about that. All right, I'm not even gonna go through this whole certified because we already know that.
Classic.
Like this is certified, and it's going like where, and it's funny because Nas came out and said, like whatever five, like Damo said on one off, whatever five you could think about, that's what it is. Nas came out and said yesterday that he's actually tired of people celebrating Illmatic. He said that, he gets it. It's a great album. He's done now performances with it at the Kennedy Center here in D.C., with the NSO, both for the 20th and 25th anniversary. He did Time is Illmatic, the documentary that came out on the 20th anniversary of the album. You can look at a lot of different greatest of lists, and it's on all of them. But he said, listen, that time has passed. Let's move on, because Nas is now doing a lot of different things, despite the fact of not just only putting out music, and he's still doing that nowadays. He's also delved into the world of investing, and now has an angel investment firm. I believe it is Queenbridge Capital, or whatever the name of the venture capital firm is, and he's invested in a number of different things that have brought him handsome returns.
Got $1 billion off him.
Yeah. He's invested in a number of different things. Ring, Pill Pack. Yeah, Pill Pack. All things that have done. He's found a way to reinvent himself as a business. Like everybody used to always talk about, there's always this parallel between Jay-Z and Nas, right? The beef and the rivalry besides, the fact that there was some things. Everybody used to always say, like, well, Nas is a rapidy rap type dude, and everyone will sort of give him a little bit more props of being a little bit more skilled, but Jay was more smooth, he was more popular, plus he's a businessman. But then Nas sort of flipped the script.
Kufi don't mean that he right.
Yeah, so
I don't understand the words that he right.
Yeah. But Nas sort of flipped it and sort of reinvented himself, especially after his divorce from Khalees, sort of reinvented himself and got himself involved in a number of different ventures. And him being now a venture capitalist, I think is something now that he can serve as a mentor and an example to a lot of different people. And to me, it shows that he's not just like, you get into a lot of these things, rappers, music is all they have. He's taken this and moved it into a whole different other arena. So this is the thing I want to have to sort of close this podcast out. On your list all time, where does this stand?
Top 5.
I need a little bit better than that, Dave. I need specifics.
Five,
is it one? Is it 2, 3, 4, 5? Is it somewhere in between 2 and 4? Is it 1 and 3? What is it?
It's got to be somewhere in the top 3. I'm saying maybe like number 2 all time.
Number 2 for you?
Number 2 all time.
Okay.
As far as music, totally.
Music. I'm talking about hip hop. I'm talking about hip hop albums.
Hip hop's number 1.
Number one.
Number 1.
Without Illmatic, there's no Kendrick.
Or Reasonable Doubt.
Without Illmatic, there might be. I don't know. Is Jay here? Is he? Yeah, he'll be here, but
he's here. He's here.
He'll still be rapping fast though.
Yeah.
You think he'll be Jazzy J?
Yeah, he'll be Jazzy J.
Sophie?
Yeah.
Beyond that,
he probably will.
Jay always had skill, but I think.
But even after like Hawaiian Sophie, I mean, like, you know what I'm saying, he didn't have that fast flow, but like that period, like after Hawaiian Sophie, before Reasonable Doubt, I mean, he had some joints. Like he wasn't necessarily rapping fast, so he'd be around, but I don't think he'd be to the level necessarily he is now.
Yeah, no,
at least not as quick. You know what I mean? So.
Nah, indeed. Jay, what about you? Hip hop albums all time on your list. Where is it? And this is all personal favorite. I mean, there's no wrong answer here. Yeah. I mean, you can,
Right, I got you.
I know you were big into West Coast hip hop, especially at that time. So,
honestly, I'd probably say number 2.
Number 2?
Yeah.
Okay. Damo?
1.
Yeah, this is my number 1 as well. And it's my number 1 because of all the reasons that I mentioned. Because there's so many different things that I could write an essay why this is probably the greatest hip hop album of all time, in my opinion. There's many people that will say different other things. I think in many aspects this is the greatest. I think influence wise, this can't be overstated. Like you said, if there was no Illmatic, then like you said, there may not be a Kendrick. Now Kendrick had a lot of West Coast influence.
Cole.
Yeah, J. Cole. Yeah. No Illmatic, there might not be a Crit either, man. Like, now a lot of these people from different places had influences from their hometown. Crit from South, Cole as well, being from the South of North Carolina. Kendrick being West Coast influenced by NWA and Dre and Snoop and everything else. But this album, sure enough, crossed a lot of different spectrums. And we talked about regionalism. Like me and Jay talk about that all the time on Facebook, each other. It's like how different regions had their own style, and nobody's region sounded the same. And people sort of got into their box, sort of got into it and locked themselves down. But to me, this was respected by people everywhere. Even The Game said on, I think it was Hip Hop Is Dead, when he was talking about some on the track that he had with Nas, he said, what'd he say? He said he had $20. He said there's 2 tapes. It's the Chronic and Illmatic. He said the Chronic on the one side, the Illmatic on the left. On me, so I stole them both. Spent the 20 on the dub sack. And he was even saying, as a West Coast dude, he was a West Coast dude in a New York state of mind. How much it influenced him. But that to me, it's 1. And the place where it is on your list, if you're listening out there, it may be lower because there's some people that I know that they don't even think that this is Nas' best album. I'm like, okay. I don't know what you.
That's strange.
Pass me what you.
Whatever
smoking,
you
bro.
think. If this is not Nas' best album, please
Pass me what you smoking.
pass me whatever it is you
Pass
smoking,
it, man. Please.
So
If I want that kind of smoke,
Yeah.
thinking like that.
so, but this Nas Illmatic, 25 years later, you can see. Please go check out not just the album itself if you haven't listened to it by now. If you haven't listened to it by now, what's going on with your life? Get your life together. But definitely go check out Nas Illmatic and search YouTube. Just go and look on the searching of you. Just go and search YouTube and search the making of Illmatic and documentaries about Illmatic, and you'll see so many different gems that are on there about the making of this album. The reason why I think I respect this album so much, and also the making of Reasonable Doubt, is because you see documentaries about the people who made the albums, the producers and the artists themselves. That to me gives me an insight, which makes me respect it that much more. But please go check it out. Check out the documentaries. Take it and appreciate it for what it is 25 years afterwards. And that is going to wrap up yet another edition of The Vault. Please make sure you check us out on our host Podbean, vaultcmr.podbean.com. You can also download, stream, and subscribe to The Vault CMR on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. We appreciate all the support. And if you have a friend, tell a friend. And if you have told that friend, tell that friend to tell another friend. And if you are in the DMV and are looking for podcasting services to record your podcast, make sure you check us out on IV Creative. Search IV Creative on Facebook. Also IVECRE8 on Instagram as well. You can also email us at ivecre8@gmail.com. Doesn't matter whether you're an experienced podcaster or if you're just getting started out of the box and you want to start recording your own podcast, please let us know. Hit us up. We'd love to be able to help you. And for those of you who are in the DMV, we are mobile, so we will come to you. I always want to make sure that I shout out my fellows here in their podcast. Make sure you're checking out Cousin Damo, Dominique's podcast, Raw Sex podcast on Podbean, Apple Podcast, and also on Spotify. Make sure you're checking out Facebook and DT's, Dave's Ground Rule Double podcast on Facebook Monday evenings and Friday evenings. Please check your listings to see when they will go live. And always appreciate my boy J.O. and his perspective on hip hop and everything that he brings to the table. Always want to make sure that we tell you before we leave. Always remember to keep your headphones on and your music loud, but not too loud. As we close, we like to remind everyone to dream big, because dreams are the basis for creation. Always create, motivate, and elevate, because you were never destined or created to stay stationary in this life. And on that note, we say peace.
Thank you for listening and coming into The Vault. Please subscribe and follow us on Facebook at IV Creative and Instagram at IVECRE8.